Welcome to the Wilson Combat Channel. My name is Massad Ayoob, and I'm one of the many content providers here. If I don't seem to have a welcoming smile, it's because the nature of today's topic doesn't lend itself to that. I've been asked to talk to you about gun-free zones. Whenever I hear that term, I hear hunting preserve for psychopathic murderers. Now, let's look at the history of mass murders in, let's say, the last quarter century in the United States. Going back to Columbine, we've seen the pattern of the mass media being all massacre, 24/7, all the time. And what it's done, everyone remembers the names of the two little psychopaths who murdered those children at the high school in Columbine. No one but the loved ones remembers the names of the victims. Do you think that was lost in a world where psychologists tell us as many as 1 out of every 100 people might be a psychopath? And we have seen the pattern again and again. Every one of these thwarted losers sees someone commit an atrocity like that and become a household name. Remember the song, "Wanna See My Smiling Face on the Cover of the Rolling Stone"? You go back into the archives and look at the cover of Rolling Stone magazine that had Sarnoff, the Boston bomber, on it. You go back and you remember those two little animals in Littleton, Colorado, who killed those children at Columbine. They found themselves on the cover of Time, on the cover of Newsweek. And CNN and the other mass media seem to make, for weeks after these shootings, it's a 24/7 news cycle. We know now that mass murder has become a media-inspired trend crime among these psychopaths. We can't make that go away. What we need to do is fight fire with fire. If we know a certain pattern of attack is almost certainly going to happen again, we need to put a counter in place, something that can interdict them on the ground where they strike. Law enforcement has done what it can in terms of SROs, school resource officers, whose job in the past had been largely interacting with the kids, picking up intelligence on low-level crimes before they could become higher-level crimes for the juvenile squad to deal with. But now also much more the fact that they are the first line of defense against the next psychopath who walks into a schoolhouse and wants to murder young people. We've seen the same in the churches. Now more and more we've seen volunteer church groups, and we've seen their success. Most notably, the Jack Wilson incident at the White Settlement Church in Texas. That mad dog opened fire. He was able to kill 2 people in his first few seconds, and before he could kill the third, Jack Wilson, from a good 15 yards away, had fired a single shot and put a .357 bullet through that madman's brain and ended the slaughter. That is the paradigm that we need to look at, whether we're looking at securing the church or securing the school. Why are so many of these happening in gun-free zones? Simply because predators seek prey. They may want to die in their sick blaze of glory when it's over. They want to die at the hands of the SWAT team. They don't want to die at the hands of Miss Grundy, the history teacher, who put a 9mm bullet through their head. Is this the thinking of the psychopathic killer, or is this just something the gun nuts came up with? Well, let's look at history. Back in the 1990s, the man who opened fire on the Jewish daycare center in California, he was captured alive. He flatly said at first he was going to attack a synagogue, but then he realized there might be armed guards. He figured there wouldn't be armed guards at the children's center, and God damn him, he was right. Now let's fast forward a little bit. July 20, 2012, the massacre that occurred in the movie theater in Colorado. We know from the studies of John Lott and others who studied the killing ground there and plotted it out, there were other theaters that he could have gone to that were closer to his home and logistically would have been easier for him to bring his death weapons to. He didn't choose those. We know that part of his motivation was to set his sick record with a kill count. There were other theaters that would have had more people, more victim-rich, target-rich environment. He didn't go there either. He went to the one theater that his scouting had to have shown, was a gun-free zone where no one could shoot back. And you look at the death toll he amassed unopposed until finally at the first sight of an armed good guy, he surrendered. Now let's look literally within months. It was April of the same year, 2012, elsewhere in Colorado. Another sick son of a bitch just like him pulled a gun at a church and opened fire. He got off enough to kill one victim, the pastor's mother. And then he fell to the ground dead because an armed parishioner had drawn their legally carried gun and shot the murderer dead. Look, prior to that, at another church shooting in Colorado, the Gene Assam incident. Gene Assam is a former police officer, now a private citizen, and volunteer armed security at the New Life Church. She was inside the church when she heard the gunfire outside. The assassin had opened fire in the parking lot and claimed his first victims. When he burst into that church, filled with innocent people that he had planned to murder, he was met by Jeannie Assam, armed with a Beretta 92 9mm pistol. She ran directly toward him shooting. She put bullet after 124 grain jacketed hollow point bullet into him. And when he went down, he only had enough strength left to fire one more shot, and he did it to end his own miserable life, to finish what Jeannie Assam had started. Jeannie Assam was hailed by President Bush himself for all the many, many lives she saved inside that packed megachurch. Did you ever hear about the incident where the guy at the church in Colorado got off one victim and then went down to the gunfire of the armed citizen? No. If you do a Google search, you'll find it, but the mass media overlooked that. Jeannie Assam briefly flared and then disappeared from the headlines. And all they said afterwards was, oh, the killer killed himself. The killer killed himself because his depredations had been stopped by the gunfire of Jeannie Assam. As you look at the big picture, schools and churches nationwide, look to the state of Ohio. Ohio has gone in big time with the armed school teacher program. There they have the FASTER program created by John Benner at TDI, Tactical Defense Institute, and his excellent team, including the Serino family. There have been no successful attacks on schools in Ohio. Why? Because they publicized that. They publicized there are school staff in here who are armed, who have qualified to the same standard as the state police. And if you make entry here to harm these children, they will stop you before you can harm them. I have the good fortune to live in the community in the southeastern United States, where in cooperation with an excellent sheriff's department, the school system has taken the same approach. And earlier this year, I was proud to see in the community newspaper the headline story in which the superintendent of schools flatly said, "We are armed. If you come to this school to harm our children, we will kill you." And not surprisingly, no one has. Perhaps the signal atrocity of 2012 that began the whole ban the guns movement and, gee, let's disarm the victims even more, was the atrocity at Sandy Hook Elementary School. 20 children dead, 6 adults. And many of those adults died trying to shield the little ones, helplessly because they were unarmed. The first to fall was the principal of Sandy Hook Elementary School, a petite woman named Dawn Hawksprung. The witnesses said when that little madman with the rifle he'd stolen from his murdered mother whom he killed to get access to the gun safe. When he shot his way through the door, the witnesses said Dawn Hochsprung ran toward him with her hands extended as if to struggle with him for the gun. She had nothing to fight with, and he shot her down helplessly, and she was the first of those to die. Let's go back. I told you about Jeannie Assam. Suppose somehow we could have crossbred Jeannie Assam with Dawn Hochsprung. And when that evil little bastard shot his way through the door of that elementary school, she had run toward him not with empty hands, but with a Beretta. There would have been 20 children alive. Some of them, about this time, would be graduating high school. There would be 6 brave adults alive, and the only casualty would have been the evil thing that came there to die. Imagine. Imagine. And think of that when you think of gun-free zones. Thank you for listening. If you agree, share the truth. And share your opinions here in our comments section. Thank you.